8, we have the
Enters that.
Megarachnids.
Megarachnids.
That these things come from a planet known simply as murder, you can kind of guess just how horrifying.
They're from a planet called Murder, and they're giant spiders. I'm good, brother. Just nuke the planet from orbit. Just get it done. Exterminatus, end it. We're, you know, I think everyone can agree on that. Going on YouTube, John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day so far. Today we got another Warhammer 40k video for you guys. We're going to check out one from Weshammer. Top 10 scary and obscure monsters from Warhammer 40k. So I saw this and was just kind of curious to see what monsters is going to be talking about in this. Is it just going to be more, you know, demons from the warp? Is it going to be stuff from Tyrannid or some other kind of Xenos races? But I'm just curious to see if there's anything in here that I haven't already heard about. So we're going to check this out. Again, as always, links below down in the description to Weshammer's channel and to this video without my commentary. So if you want to check that out, those will be down below. And yeah, for now, let's just get into it here. Boop. Volume. Let's go.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
The 40k universe is filled with terrifying aliens and monsters. And
That
since the
is.
franchise is actually pretty big, most people are familiar with some of the big ones, such as the terrifying undead alien robots with galaxy-killing weapons known as the Necrons, the sadomasochist BDSM elves of the Dark Eldar, or even the voracious Tyrannid swarm. But the galaxy is a pretty big place, and there's some truly terrifying aliens out there that don't get nearly enough attention, like a race of alien parasites that feed
looks
off
terrifying.
Of religious worship, or a floating
really?
brain jellyfish that takes over your head and turns your emotions into a weapon. So today we're going to take a look at 10 super scary and obscure aliens from 40k that you've probably never heard of.
Okay, cool. So he's going into stuff that, yeah, are type of aliens that, like he says, I've not heard of yet. Interesting that there's an alien race that takes the worship of your faith and like feeds off of it. And then another one that uses your emotions as a weapon. So I'm curious to see what these things will, what their names are and what kind of encounters I guess humanity or the other races have had against these things.
Let's get into the grimdark.
In the number 10 spot, we have the Chimera. Let's start this list with a creature that literally feeds on nightmares. They're known as the Chimera and resemble large skinless dogs or cats made out of raw muscle and bone. They're like an amalgamation of flesh, teeth, and talons. Their skulls have multiple small black eyes, like that of a spider, and it's said that their bodies glisten as if they're wet, no matter how much illumination there is.
What is with that tongue? It's like he's got like one of the xenomorph stingers as a tongue. That's terrifying. This literally looks like some kind of hellhound.
They are truly terrifying to look at. The Chimera are vicious predators that hunt by sensing the psychic presence given off by sentient creatures.
Interesting. So obviously then psychers would be something that these things would hunt down, but I'm curious, like Grey Knight encounters, have Grey Knights encountered these things? And if so, like how did those encounters go? Would like Grey Knights, I would assume, because they're, you know, able to battle demons and such, that they wouldn't necessarily have any issues fighting these things, but these being they fight or feed off psychic energies, I wonder if that would make them more vulnerable to these type of creatures, if they have some kind of way of like neutralizing them through psychic means or whatever. Anyway.
Often there's predators that hunt by sensing the psychic presence given off by sentient creatures. Often this causes them to have a particular fondness for people with psychic abilities, being drawn to them like sharks to the scent of blood, whether hunting on instinct or being directed by a malicious entity that has somehow gained power over them. They are absolutely ruthless killing machines, often being tamed and employed by the Dark Eldar as a form of shock unit, despite their terrifying appearance.
Okay, so they're pets for the Dark Eldar at times. Interesting. No wonder.
These creatures are not actually demons, even though they are technically from the warp. You see, the warp is a parallel universe, a realm of emotion, and that includes all of the emotions felt by sentient creatures. The psychic energy left by the emotions of fear and terror leave a particular footprint in the warp that sometimes a cyst can develop on. As the cyst grows, it will eventually birth a chimera. As creatures of the warp, the Chimera do not have a physical form, not really. They tend to drift between the physical universe and the immaterium. In fact, the Chimera are able to phase between the two existences at will. This means that nothing can get in their way when in pursuit of prey. Barricades, locked doors, it doesn't matter. If the Chimera are locked onto you, there is no escaping them. They've even been known to materialize inside of the cockpits of aircrafts.
So if you're being hunted by one of these things, there's no flight. You just have to fight them and hope you can kill it. That would make them pretty ridiculous predators then, yeah.
There is no escaping them. They've even been known to materialize inside of the cockpits of aircrafts, in armored troop transports, or even on the decks of void-borne ships. Now, what's really interesting about them is that through spreading fear and terror during their attacks, the Chimera are subsequently allowing for their continued existence. Not only do they feed on this torment, but their presence
it probably makes them stronger, is what I was gonna say. And I bet for the Dark Eldar that like use these, they're probably powerful bloodhounds, you know? So, yeah.
Consequently allowing for their continued existence.
That just looks terrifying.
This torment, but their presence.
Like, can you imagine, like, getting, like, stung by these, like, impaled by these, dude, with all the barbs and then the tongue alone, too? And I don't know. Like, it's just terrifying. This looks like, you know, a lion mixed with a xenomorph that is just pure muscle and like terror.
Subsequently allowing for their continued existence. Not only do they feed on this torment, but their presence will generate new waking nightmares in any survivors. Stories of their attacks will spread across the sector, infecting the minds of other people, which will then in turn generate fear in the warp for them to spawn on. In the number 9 spot, we have the Medusa. The Medusa resemble large floating brains covered in tentacles. Now, other than their truly unsettling appearance, there isn't anything particularly horrifying or dangerous about them off the bat.
Kind of reminds me of, I forget what they're called, but the creatures toward the end of Bloodborne that produce frenzy when you look at them and you just die. They're like, they kind of have like the body uniform of the doll, but they just have the brains on them, and they kind of like have that weird like singing thing. I forget what they're called, but yeah, it's reminding me of them if you've played Bloodborne.
Unsettling appearance, there isn't anything particularly horrifying or dangerous about them off the bat.
Very eldritch.
As a full-grown adult would have no problem fighting them off with a baseball bat. However, the Medusa are far more dangerous than their initial appearance lets on. You see, they are empathetic hunters in that they eat emotions. In order to hunt successfully, they will attempt to attach to a living host, and once in control of their body, they will force the host to experience emotion to ludicrously heightened levels. What's truly terrifying about the Medusa is that by all accounts, it is the ultimate parasite, as unlike other parasitic creatures, it doesn't just feed off of its host, but literally becomes one with them.
Becomes the host,
Medusa
symbiotic.
will attempt to attach to the victim, taking over the back of their head and injecting them with many whip-like appendages. Each of these resembles a spinal cord, and one—
It's very, what are they called? Mind Flayer. This is very Mind Flayer-ish here. D&D
inside
stuff.
the victim's body, the appendages will link with its neural system and begin to take over. Even though they tend to take over the host's body, they mostly leave the minds intact. In fact, the host is still able to experience everything. They maintain their mind and all of their senses. An individual who has been infected by a Medusa becomes incredibly dangerous. It is—
Hey, they would want them to keep experiencing stuff so they could keep feeding them with that emotional energy so they could live. So, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
An individual who has been infected by a Medusa becomes incredibly dangerous. It is said that just by meeting their gaze, the creature can cause emotional hemorrhaging within the victim, causing a complete overload of their brains as they're flooded with emotion. When in battle, a Medusa and its host can generate emotion-based psychic powers to wreak havoc on their enemies. They expose their victims to overpowering feelings of anguish and terror. The waves of dread they emanate are so powerful that they can cause humans to collapse into a comatose state. Where these creatures come from is currently unknown, and some suggest that they're not native to this galaxy. Although it is also theorized that similar to the Chimera, they are a hybrid of matter and emotion from the physical and immaterial universes. The Medusa are frequently spotted alongside the Dark Eldar, and are normally attached to their slaves. And it's not—
I am curious if that's, you know, off topic with this, but I am curious if that's what Games Workshop is eventually going to do with the Tyranids, is they're going to be from another galaxy, and they'll use the Tyranids as a way to expand the universe even greater. You know what I mean? I am curious if they're going to do that. And then, you know, we might see some other kind of Xenos things come in. But it would be interesting, yeah, if these are from another galaxy instead of just being, you know, like the Chimera hybrid warp-born things that are just born from various emotions and just feed off of it.
Medusa are frequently spotted alongside the Dark Eldar and are normally attached to their slaves.
So, I mean, they have like models of these. So, like, do these things have some kind of place potentially in the tabletop as like some kind of like neutral enemy unit or whatever that could in various scenarios? Like, I don't know how certain games work, you know, with different objectives and stuff like that. And I don't know if there's any kind of way that they might have like neutral factions on the board or something like that that could attack both sides or something like that, you know, that could be run from, you know, another third party. But, you know, I don't know if this is just a model to have a model or if this is, yeah, I'm just curious how any of this stuff might have a place in the tabletop, because it's a model. There's a model of it here. So anyway, if anyone knows, you know, if these things have some kind of place in the tabletop, if it's just like a different variant of a unit and it's just like a possessed unit or whatever, so they have variant abilities or whatever's, you know, is going on, just let me know. I'm just curious.
And it's not really surprising why, because it's also documented that if you were to eat a Medusa, you would experience all of that stored up emotion inside of the creature. A tidal wave of pain and pleasure, dread and euphoria that will absolutely wreak havoc on your neural system.
So would this like be a drug for like the Dark Eldar? Would they like want to seek these things out to like kill them and then consume them to get those that experience, that pleasure, that rush of pain and pleasure? You know what I mean?
Pain and pleasure, dread and euphoria that will absolutely wreak havoc on your neural system. And since the Dark Eldar are kind of into this, it's probable that they raise them as pets or food.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go.
In at number 8, we have the Megarachnids. Considering that these things come from a planet known simply as Murder, you can kind of guess just how horrifying.
They're from a planet called Murder, and they're giant spiders. I'm good, brother. Just nuke the planet from orbit. Just get it done. Exterminatus, end it. We're, you know, I think everyone can agree on that.
Considering that these things come from a planet known simply as Murder, you can kind of guess just how horrifying they are. You see, the Megarachnids were first discovered by the Blood Angels during the Great Crusade. When the planet was first encountered by the Imperium, it was emanating a strange signal from many tree-like growths on the planet's surface. Unfortunately for the Blood Angels, they were not able to make heads or tails out of what the signal was trying to tell them, and thus descended to the planet below.
That is terrifying. That's just a giant spider with this like demon carpus face and mouth and mandibles. It's like a xenomorph and Shelob and a predator had a threesome, and somehow there was an amalgamation created from all three of them. That is terrifying.
Was that these signals were a warning that an incredibly dangerous species known as the Megarachnids had been quarantined here. Megarachnids are spider-like creatures with 8 legs, 4 of which end in long bladed appendages used for combat.
So I wonder who quarantined them.
Generated by the creature's body, along with the blade's insane sharpness, meant that they could easily cleave through Space Marine armor as if it was made of wet paper. The species was also hyper-intelligent, and apparently at one point, was capable of space travel. However, the species known as the Interax, who had imprisoned them here, had also stripped them of all of their technology.
Interax, interesting. So then, you know, that also begs the question, what were to happen if the Tyranids were to integrate them into their brood, you know, integrate them into their evolutionary whatever they do, you know what I'm saying? Something else would be of increase their intelligence and capability and all that. I don't know. That's just yeah, just exterminate this planet and move on.
The Megarachnids came in a variety of different shapes and sizes. Some of them were capable of flight, while others developed biological weapons.
Flying
like
spiders.
The ability to spit acid or cocoon their victims in silk as dense and hard as cement. There were even reports of some of the Megarachnids that were the size of Imperial Titans. They also reproduced so quickly and laid so many eggs that the Blood Angels determined it was a waste of time to attempt to destroy their
spider-like creatures as big as titans. No. I'm good, brother.
breeding grounds. The eggs, that the Blood Angels determined it was a waste of time to attempt to destroy their breeding grounds. A combined force of Blood Angels and Emperor's Children campaigned against the Megarachnids for 6 months. But at the last minute, the species that had originally imprisoned them arrived on the world trying to figure out what was going on. And they actually turned out to be an advanced species of human, which the legions determined was a much more important thing to address, and thus the Megarachnids were saved from extinction as the crusade immediately ended. Whether or not the Megarachnids were able to repopulate is unknown, and they very well might
like
still be out.
Spider hydralis.
Before we dive into the next entry, I have a quick message from this week's sponsor.
It's 2022, and every day more and more businesses are moving online. Nowadays,
2 years behind.
It's more important than ever to have your own website. But most people don't even really know where to begin when it comes to making one. Squarespace takes the hassle out of website design and makes
Just go to Fiverr and have someone do it for you.
They have hundreds of award-winning templates, so you can get a crisp, clean, professional-looking site up and running in no time at all. But if I'm being honest, there's a lot more to running a website than just having a pretty interface. There's analytics to track, search engine optimization to perform, and honestly, a lot of that can be really overwhelming for a first-time website owner. But thankfully, Squarespace gives its users access to some pretty cool analytic tools, which gives you valuable insight into how your business is growing. Not to mention an entire suite of search engine optimization resources, which will help push your website to the top of online searches. And if you head over to squarespace.com, you can get a free trial, so there's no risk involved. And if you do decide that Squarespace is right for you, then you can use the link squarespace.com/Weshammer and use the code Weshammer at checkout. Then you can get 10% off your first domain or website. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and let's get into the grimdark.
And the number 7.
Well, if all that's still working and you need a website, go check it out. Use this code. Give the guys some support.
7th spot, we have the Razor Wings. Even though the
Birds.
Razor Wings may resemble crows, they're more like a flying pack of piranhas. Every single razor wing is
Flying
an incredibly
piranha
effective hunter.
crows.
Their sharp beaks and talons, coupled with their incredible flying speed, turns them into vicious predators. It's said that in flight, their flying speed can outpace even the Imperium scout vehicles.
What?
At least for a short time. Their claws and beaks are incredibly strong, and are able to cleave through the bones of even large herbivores with
Bro, I feel like someone at Games Workshop was having like an Alfred Hitchcock moment or something and was watching birds and was like, yo, we need to 40k this shit. Like, what?
Their claws and beaks are incredibly strong, and are able to cleave through the bones of even large herbivores with relative ease. But this isn't the main weapon that a flock of razor wings utilize. You see, their names are actually quite literal, in that the feathers of a razor wing are as sharp as monoblades. This means a razor wing's entire body is a deadly weapon.
No
When hunting,
shit.
a flock of razor wings is often led by a single, much larger individual known as an alpha. It flies ahead of the rest of the flock and is often the first to initiate an attack. After the alpha dives in, the rest of the flock descends upon the victim, like a storm of razor blades. The swarm.
So what happens if you kill the alpha? Will they all just like scatter, you know? Or is it, you know? Who knows? I don't know.
Of birds rips apart their target incredibly quickly. After their prey is dead, the razor wings will carve up the carcass and carry the meat and bones to a nearby tree in order to eat. Seeing a tree covered in blood and guts being eaten by a bunch of hellbirds is something I definitely don't need to see, but is also totally metal. Seeing as how the razor wings seem to have a particular fondness for devouring the bones of their victims, many Imperial scholars believe that the increased level of calcium in their diet is directly used to strengthen and sharpen their feathers into frightening weapons.
Yeah, that could make sense, I guess.
Razor wings are also quite intelligent and are often able to be tamed by skilled Drukhari beastmasters. Coming in at number 6 is the
Again, with the Dark Eldar, of course. I wonder how many things of this the Dark Eldar actually like keep as pets.
And are often able to be tamed by skilled Drukhari beastmasters. Coming in at number 6
Unquenched.
is the Unquenched. The Unquenched are basically dehydrated zombie-like creatures from the world of Vaporous. These creatures are cursed with an unquenchable thirst that never ends and worsens every single day, causing them to seek out any form of moisture they can get their hands on. Whether
So the Walking Dead planet, but they want moisture instead of just, you know, regular food or whatever.
that be cans of gasoline or even human blood. There exist no formal reports about these things, and information on them is incredibly scarce. It seems like the only people who know the truth about the Unquenched, that is, what they actually are and where they come from, would be the Priest Kings of Vaporis itself, as they appeared around the same time that the Priest Kings took power. Now, what we as the audience know is that all of the Unquenched begin their lives as normal humans, with some form of psychic ability, but at some point, after drinking the water within their city, a form of corruption takes hold of them.
Interesting.
As soon as signs of this corruption are noticed, they are reported to the Priest Kings, and their warriors sweep in to capture them.
I wonder what it is, if it's some kind of like Nurgle plague or whatever that got into the water, or just some other kind of disease, or what. But yeah, that's interesting.
No one knows exactly what happens during the time period in which they're captured, but there are rumors of dark rituals being conducted by the Priest Kings themselves. After a time,
Or yeah, it's something from the Priest Kings that they're doing. Maybe they worship one of the Chaos gods or some other kind of god, and they do some kind of ritual on these people after they drink something in the water and absorb their soul or essence in some way to gain power, and this is what's left over.
But there are rumors of dark rituals being conducted by the Priest Kings themselves. After a time, the individual will be taken far from civilization and cast out into the desert. For the rest of their days, they will wander the wastes as a feral, ghoulish predator, desperately and frantically searching for any form of liquid they can find. Upon examination, an Unquenched is basically a feral dehydrated zombie. Their body is completely dead, and the psychic energy that once gave them their unique abilities is refocused into keeping the body moving and creating a never-ending unquenchable thirst that...
So maybe that's what it is. Maybe the priests or whatever are trying to sap their psychic power, and the only thing that's left over is the psychic drive or whatever that keeps the body from just decaying into nothing and them dying. Interesting.
Drives them to madness. Interestingly enough, they seem to retain their sentience and sometimes even their personalities, although admittedly this is incredibly rare, and their vocal cords are normally the first thing to wither away. The individual who turned into an Unquenched would need to have the ability to communicate psychically in order to talk to a normal person. The more time goes on, the more the Unquenched mind will start to deteriorate, as the never-ending search for water drives them deeper and deeper into madness. There are rumors of Unquenched who are early into their transformation, helping travelers escape the desert, and marking places on their maps to avoid. Most commonly, these are subterranean gathering spots for large groups of Unquenched that have been around for a long time and have become completely deranged, and are now no more than feral undead predators.
So again, then I guess the question would be, like, what happens if they actually finally get some kind of water? Does it, like, reinvigorate them, or is it actually kind of more like a vampire thing where, you know, they get more healthy, they get, you know, more vibrant, their sanity back, etc., if they actually get some water or something like that, you know? Interesting.
And have become completely deranged and are now no more than feral undead predators. However, there are also reports of rogue traders that come to Vaporis specifically searching for such places, as these are the areas where the Unquenched will drag their victims to, and are rumored to have incredible hoards of wealth.
You can see that. You could see, you know, piles of victims and their treasures left over or whatever that they wouldn't necessarily care about. So you could see adventurers, rogue traders, whatever, wanting to seek these hordes out and risk it all going against them. I could see that.
Accumulated from all of the victims that have been drained.
It would be an interesting episode to watch if a rogue trader show ever gets made and whatever the Amazon cinematic universe becomes.
And are rumored to have incredible hoards of wealth, accumulated from all of the victims that have been drained over the generations in these cave systems. In the number 5 spot, we have the Hrud. The Hrud are one of the most bizarre alien species on this list. And this is because they have the unique ability to manipulate time and use it as a weapon. There have been multiple documented encounters with the Hrud, but many of these reports have different accounts of what they actually look like. Their depictions have ranged from small rat-like creatures that tend to infest dark places, to tall, vaguely humanoid aliens with segmented bodies and large black eyes. This has led to multiple debates on whether or not they're a bunch of different species or one and the same, all collectively known as the Hrud. What is known is that the Hrud emit a distortion field that makes it incredibly difficult for the eyes to focus on them. They could be right in front of you, and despite being directly in your path of vision, they appear like a blurry afterimage.
This is supposed to be like one of those stories where it's like they're always around you, and it's one of those things where like you can only really like see them out of the corner of the eye, but when you look, you can never actually like really physically like see them straight on, you know what I mean? It's like one of those kind of alien stories. Interesting. So they can manipulate time. I wonder, does that mean like they're essentially immortal? Because they can manipulate time, they don't necessarily really like age or can die, or they can just keep reversing their age. Oh, excuse me, or something like that. And like, are they predators? How would they hunt? Do they like find something and then just like rewind them back in time to where they're young and helpless, and then just kill and eat them or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder how that will work. I guess let's find out.
Despite being directly in your path of vision, they appear like a blurry afterimage. Your brain is trying to tell you that there's something threatening coming for you, but even though you know it's there, you just can't seem to focus on it. What makes the Hrud particularly dangerous is that they emit a passive entropic field all around them that speeds up time. The field gets larger and stronger the more Hrud gather together, and on a large scale, this can cause infrastructure to collapse, crops to wither, and the human population of a world to age incredibly rapidly.
Yeah.
When in close proximity to them, the Hrud are able to ramp up the power of these fields to render their opponents old and feeble, and thus unable to defend against their attacks.
Okay, so they do the opposite of what I was talking about. Instead of rewinding time to where they're like a toddler or something like that couldn't do anything, they ramp up time until they've aged to the point where they can't do anything. Interesting.
In one instance, when the Iron Warriors found themselves engaged with the Hrud, a space marine named Antioch was aged 3,000 years. He was still alive after this encounter, but he was definitely a feeble old man. So if anything good was to have come out of this battle, it's that we learned that space marines do age, just super slowly.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 4
Long
is the
lifespans.
Enslavers. The Enslavers
I've heard something about the Enslavers before, I think. I think they're like some kind of multi-dimensional creatures that are supposedly like have been around since even before the old gods or whatever, and they might have been enemies of the old gods or something like that. I think it could be again confusing lore or mixing up lore, but I guess let's find out.
age just super slowly. Coming in at number 4 is the Enslavers. The Enslavers are a parasitic warp creature that resembles a large-toothed jellyfish. They are drawn like hungry predators to the psychic energy generated by all living creatures.
Seems like a lot of these things are, yeah, kind of psychically in tuned and hunt psychers. It definitely seems like psychers have a lot of trouble in the 40k universe. Everything seems to be attracted to them. Demons, you know, all these weird warp parasites, warp creatures that just want to eat their soul or their essence or whatever. Seems like psychers would have a rough time if they're not prepared to defend themselves.
They are drawn like hungry predators to the psychic energy generated by all living creatures, but are particularly drawn to those with incredibly potent connections to the warp known as psychers. When their prey is located, the enslaver will take control of the individual's mind, and will often attempt to twist and contort that person into a literal warp portal. This is an incredibly painful and horrific process.
I bet.
And once complete, the portal will serve as a gateway for more enslavers, who will use it to enter the physical universe. Not much is known about them, and their records are fragmentary at best. We do know that their first documented sightings was millions of years ago, near the end of a period known as the War in Heaven. This was the largest period of war the galaxy has ever seen, and primarily centered around the Necrons and their ancient enemies known as the Old Ones. The Enslavers were able to pour into the universe in their trillions, and the resulting Enslaver Plague, as it was known, is believed to have played a major role in the Old One's extinction and the subsequent period where the Necrons abandoned their pursuits and went to sleep within their tomb worlds for 60 million years.
So I wonder if the Enslavers at one point in time were kind of like maybe the natural or apex denizen of the warp, you know, before the Chaos Gods really kind of, I don't know, took over, I guess. Because I don't know, their time and how the Chaos Gods formed and when they formed and if they've been there all along and all that kind of stuff is kind of, you know, strange in certain ways. But it seems like, you know, earlier on, kind of towards before the War in Heaven, chaos wasn't really quite as powerful as it is now. So I wonder if just all the fighting or whatever was like a big beacon for these enslavers, and yeah, they were like the apex creature in the warp at the time, and then they spilled out into the universe during the end of the war in heaven, like they said, and were eating up all the creatures out there, the old ones, and maybe the Catan, et cetera, to you know, take their psychic energies. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just wondering if that's the case or not.
There have been reported sightings of enslavers as recently as M41 by Ordo Malleus of the Imperial Inquisition.
So they're still around.
They're still out there, but hopefully they remain a rarity. In the number 3 spot, we have the Cranial leeches. The Cranial leeches are a voracious grub-like alien parasite that has plagued the
Sounds like the Goa'uld from Stargate. I'm just saying. It sounds like they're gonna get into your brain and attach themselves there, and that's just your life now.
sector for generations. Their exact origins remain unclear, but it is believed by the individuals that live in this sector that they are a form of organic weaponry grown by a malicious, unknown alien species. Tales of cranial leeches attacking humans have existed for a long time, and the reports indicate that the leech will attempt to forcibly burrow under the victim's skin, using its razor-sharp lamprey-like maw to create an entry point.
Great.
Or more commonly and disgustingly, by attacking the victim's eyes or other soft tissue.
Great.
Once inside the body, the cranial leech will rapidly and hungrily begin to consume anything in its path as it tunnels towards the victim's brain. The process on average takes about 5 minutes to complete, and once the leech reaches the brain, it'll unleash a series of tendrils from its body that connect to the victim's neural tissue. It will then pulse out shockwaves into the flesh that cause an intense feeling of agony, causing the victim to convulse and seize. Once the leech is fully implemented, the convulsions will cease and the individual will become incredibly suggestible as the leech messes with the victim's mind. Whoever the leech's controller is will then be able to manipulate the person into carrying out their bidding. Some reports state that
Literally the Goa'uld. Literally the Goa'uld from Stargate. That's what it is.
these creatures have been spotted being sold in what is known as the faceless trade, which you can think of as a black market that specializes in alien relics and technology.
Let me guess. Primarily run by the Dark Eldar.
That have been deemed heretical by the Inquisition. And where these individuals are getting those leeches from is, however, still unknown. In the number 2 spot, we have the Nephilim. There are definitely a lot of parasitic and mind-controlling type creatures within the 40k universe, but the Nephilim were probably the most bizarre, in that they didn't feed off emotions like the Medusa, or fear like the Chimera, but they actually fed off of religious adulation. The Nephilim were first encountered on the human world of Malchior, said to be twice as tall as a space marine and slow-moving. The Nephilim had round torsos and appeared in multiple different colors. It was believed that these colors indicated some type of rank within their society. With no mouths to eat any kind of organic matter, the Nephilim instead fed off the psychic energy generated specifically through religious worship. When they would arrive on a planet, they would greet the human colonists with open arms and preach of their religion and the rewards that awaited in heaven for all that followed in their path. The aliens...
I mean, that would be an interesting way. Like, it would make kind of sense in a way. Like, you're an alien species, right? You can travel the galaxy, universe, whatever. You're an interplanetary, interstellar, species. You find races of less technologically advanced creatures. You go down to the planet and you introduce yourselves, maybe give them some advances in technology that can help them, give them some medical advancements, maybe some other technological advancements, make their life a little bit easier, but not so great that they become a threat to you. And then you start preaching this, new religion, and of course, because you're an advanced race, more than likely they would believe you and become influenced by you, especially after you've potentially given them, like I said, some advancements to help make their lives better. So it would make them trust you more, and then you would just sit there and feed off this worship and become stronger, more powerful, until potentially I don't know if this worship eventually worship and faith eventually kills the people that are worshiping you, or if it's just something where you just get stronger the more they do it. You know what I'm saying? So, but it would be an interesting way of just like traveling around the universe to these lesser species and gaining power that way, gaining strength. And I mean, who knows what kind of ultimate form or power they could get for that, or if it's just that's how they sustain themselves. You know what I mean? But it would be, yeah.
Were said
it would be an easy way for an advanced race to do that, essentially, I guess. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
Religion and the rewards that awaited in heaven for all.
And I mean, there's already very much precedence in the 40k universe. You know, the Chaos Gods get their power through their, you know, worship and belief in various different ways and acts of, you know, ritual sacrifices and things like that. And then, of course, the Emperor seems to be gaining strength in the warp and in certain ways because of the faith and belief in him. So, yeah.
All that follow.
Rewind.
With open arms and preach of their religion and the rewards that awaited in heaven for all that followed in their path. The aliens were said to be incredibly charismatic and were able to influence those around them through a combination of their honeyed words and the ability to psychically manipulate those around them. They would even grant their followers masks made of their own flesh that would latch onto them and further pull them under their thrall. Over the years, those who believed in the Nephilim constructed many cathedrals and places of worship in their honor, fully believing in the sermons the aliens had preached. However, the dark truth about the chapels was that the rapturous psychic energy created by the worship within their walls was like a feeding ground for the Nephilim. They gorged themselves on the beliefs of their flock, draining the life force from the faithful,
so it would
them
kill
as
them.
little more than dehydrated and desecrated husks. After a world's population had been
Maybe that's how some of the quenchers you was talking about earlier are made. You know, maybe that's how it started.
Drained, they would move on to a new world and begin the process again. Now, thankfully, the Nephilim are believed to be extinct, as their homeworld was eventually found by the White Scars Legion and subsequently exterminated.
Ripped.
However, we don't really know how many worlds they actually spread to, so there's no way of knowing if they were completely wiped out or not. And in the #1 spot, we have the Sloth. The Sloth are known as one of the most terrifying and horrific alien races that continue to plague the Imperium. It is said that they are responsible for the disappearance of entire populations of countless cities or even entire worlds.
Dude, this looks like just a giant cluster of worms that have formed together. That looks disgusting.
They go by many names, including the Maggot Men, the Dream Eaters, or the Carrion Masters. And due to a lack of information on them, most don't even believe they exist. However, there are multiple records within the Inquisition's possession that confirm the terrifying alien species is all too real. Each individual sloth appears as a giant mound of sentient wriggling maggots that rise together in a vaguely humanoid shape and are almost...
This is another one where you just, you nuke this place from orbit and just move on and don't even worry about it. Like, no.
completely impervious to all forms of damage that don't completely obliterate them.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, so, I mean, there you go. There you go. Literally, you gotta nuke them. Literally, you gotta nuke them.
Technology is also seemingly incredibly advanced, so much so that it is often mistaken as sorcery. They're capable of constructing insanely powerful and esoteric weapons, and a wide array of horrifying constructs that blend the organic with the inorganic. The Sloth are nomadic in nature and don't seem to have a homeworld, at least not one documented by the Imperium. Their fleets travel around the galaxy and they act like raiders and pirates. They'll descend upon unsuspecting worlds and creep through the dead of night to abduct their victims. Their abductions start off small, snatching 1 or 2 people off the street, but over time, more and more people will start to disappear quicker and quicker. The fear and confusion these abductions spread with seemingly no cause can cause a world's population to descend into anarchy and civil war, all directly according to the Sloth's plans, who pull on the heartstrings of a planet from the shadows. They are hyper-intelligent and fully capable of space travel, but they don't seem to be interested in expanding their empire or taking any new territory. So thankfully they remain few in number, choosing instead to strike from the shadows on worlds across the galaxy. What their ultimate goals are still remain a mystery. However, over the last several centuries, the number of documented sightings of the Sloth has begun to increase exponentially, signaling the alarm bells within the Inquisition. And there we go, that's 10 super creepy aliens from the 40k universe that you probably didn't know too much about. Which one of the ones on this list do you think is the scariest and why? Are you more afraid of the Chimera, who there's absolutely no getting away from? Or does having your brain be devoured by leeches just completely gross you out?
I mean,
also, if there's any other 40k
all of them sound awful.
monsters that you think deserve to be on this list that I didn't mention, let me know about them down in the comments. I tend to learn more from my comment section about 40k than pretty much any other source, and I love hanging out and talking with you guys.
It's true. True. I'm the same way. I learn a lot more from you guys than just about anything else. And as he says, I enjoy talking with you guys. That's why I like doing my live stream, you know, discussions with you guys. It's a lot of fun. So, but yeah, so there you go. That is top 10 scary and obscure monsters from Warhammer 40k. Definitely the Enslavers, I think, were the only thing that I had heard of before. And yeah, it was only like a little excerpt during one of the videos. I think that was talking about the Necrons, where yeah, they kind of just appeared and started going after the old gods, and it was one of the things that kind of ended up destroying them. And one of the things that really helped the Necrons in that battle was them just appearing and doing that. But a lot of these creatures sound terrifying. In particular, like I said, the first creatures, the Chimera, and then the what is it, the Arachnids? Yeah, Megarachnids. I'm good with both of those, brother. Like, yeah, we don't need to deal with that. Like the Chimera, they're like I said, they're like a xenomorph mixed with a lion, and like just, you know, mixed with like a displacer beast kind of a thing from D&D. They can just bounce between the materium and immaterium at will. So there's no real protection. There is no running from them. You have to stand and fight and kill them if you're lucky. And it's like, how would you even kill them? Because if depending on how smart they are, you know, like, and they can phase in and out of the materium, you go to swing and attack them, and they just become, you know, immaterial. So they can't do it. You can't actually hit them. You know what I mean? And like I said, I am kind of curious if they have any kind of, I guess, abilities that would mess up psychers, and if so, how vulnerable would like the Grey Knights and some of those people be against them. But then the Megarachnids, just exterminate us, just end it. Don't even need to. The fact that how would the Imperium even like let something like that live? Like, they get into a planet, they start fighting these things for their lives, and then what ends up being another offshoot of humans from another world comes in, like, hey, no, it's okay, just quarantine them. Okay, this is for National Geographic. We're just observing these. Please don't. It's like, no, dude. You know, we're not. Anyway, but great video by Weshammer. As always, links below down in the description if you want to check out this video without my commentary and his channel. You should definitely go and do that. And if you would like to, you can click the join button down below and see if any of the YouTube membership tiers have any interest in you. If you want to become a YouTube member, a lot of these reactions I do live, and we have discussions, as I'd mentioned. So if you want to come in and join some of those, would love to see you guys there. But regardless of that, I appreciate you guys just hanging out and taking the time to watch the video here with me through to the end. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take it easy.